Hey, good morning. Here we are back in First Samuel. We're going to look at First Samuel 24 this morning, and I think a lot of times when we are reading through the New Testament and we read "love your enemy," we think that's only this New Testament concept. When really, it is showing us the heart of God. It's revealing us that, and we see it displayed here in David's actions or inaction against Saul, that he doesn't take vengeance in his own hands. But ultimately, we see this love your enemy mentality from the heart of God in the action of Jesus Christ. As Paul writes in Romans 5, 6 through 8, he says, For while we were still weak, at the right time Christ died for the ungodly. For one will scarcely die for a righteous person, though perhaps for a good person one will dare even to die. But God shows his love for us that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. While we were still his enemy, he loved us enough to die for us. And what we need to see is that vengeance is the Lord's. He gets to decide when to take vengeance and when not to, and it's not ours because we're so tainted with sin. We don't really have the ability to avenge ourselves righteously. A lot of times we're going to move with our emotions instead of what we actually should be doing. And as his people, we have received God's mercy, and we are called to display that mercy to our enemies. As Jesus says in Matthew 5:7, Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. So we see that again in David's inaction here. So David, he's running from Saul. We know this. We've seen it. We've talked about it a little bit. But now we see that he has this opportunity to take vengeance. Very easy opportunity too. And I love that we see the struggle here in chapter 24 in David's heart. He said, when Saul returned from following the Philistines, he was told, Behold, David is in the wilderness in En-gedi. Then Saul took 3,000 chosen men of all of Israel and went to seek David and his men in front of the wild goat rocks. And he came to the sheepfold by the way where there was a cave, and Saul went in to relieve himself. Now David and his men were sitting in the innermost parts of the cave. And the men of David said to him, Here is the day of which the Lord said to you, Behold, I will give you your enemy in your hand, and you shall do to him as it seems good to you. Then David rose and stealthily cut off the corner of Saul's robe. And afterward David's heart struck him, because he had cut off the corner of Saul's robe. You see, he has this inner turmoil. Like, he wants to take vengeance, and even if it's just cutting off part of his robe and saying, "Look, I see. I could have gotten you, and I didn't." So we're seeing that struggle in the king, or the soon-to-be king. And we have that struggle with wanting to take vengeance in our own hands, and we have this sinful and selfish desire, and we think we're justified and we're unbiased, but we are not. If we move forward in vengeance instead of moving forward in love, then sinful desire becomes sin. See, he didn't sin by kind of pondering or wrestling through that. But if he would have moved forward, then he would have sinned, because he's taking vengeance into his own hands. You see, so the struggle is not the sin. It is acting on those things, and we see that in James. So David, while he's struggling, he trusts the Lord, though. Instead of taking matters into his own hands, we see in verses 8 through 15 that he decides, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to trust the Lord. And when Saul leaves, he calls out to Saul when he's far enough away, and he says, "Look, I had the corner of your robe. I could have taken you out, and I didn't." And then he tells Saul, "See, my father," verse 11 See the corner of your robe in my hand, by the fact that I cut off the corner of your robe and did not kill you, you may know and see that there is no wrong or treason in my hands. I have not sinned against you, though you hunt my life to take it. May the Lord judge between me and you. May the Lord avenge me against you. But my hand shall not be against you. As the proverb of the ancient says, out of the wicked comes wickedness, but my hand shall not be against you. After whom has the king of Israel come out? After whom do you pursue? After a dead dog? After a flea? May the Lord therefore be judge and give sentence between me and you, and see to it and plead my cause and deliver me from your hand. So you see, David was very capable of doing this, but he says, you know what? God promises to avenge his people. I've done nothing wrong to you. Well, why are you coming out against me? I don't even understand that, but I'm not going to take matters into my own hands. I'm going to wait on the Lord. So we have to learn how to do that also, church. We so often want to take matters into our own hands when we're hurt by others, or when others are seeking to destroy us in whatever way, our reputation, our lives, I don't know. However that you've seen that in your own life. But if we do, we don't look any different than the world. We don't look any different, and we seem just like everyone else. Take matters into your own hands. You get your own. You take vengeance. But in doing this, we're not pointing to our hope in the Lord. See, David, he comes out and he tells Saul, look, I could have killed you and I didn't. I'm going to trust the Lord. My hope's in the Lord, not my ability, not your ability. It's in the Lord. So, however we do this, we need to learn to trust in the Lord and his vengeance and his vindication over others, so that others are forced to acknowledge what they're doing is wrong. They might not acknowledge it out loud, but Saul does. He sees and he calls out after David, and he says, Saul lifted up his voice and he wept, and he said to David, you are more righteous than I, for you have repaid me good, whereas I have repaid you evil. And you have declared this day how you have dealt with me, in that you did not kill me when the Lord put me into your hands. So may we act against those who come against us, not in vengeance, not getting our way, but in such a way that they turn and say, I was wrong, and you acted righteously. You didn't do anything wrong. It's hard. It's not easy, but it's something we're called to do. So I pray that you learn to trust in those hard times when you want to take matters into your own hands. Trust in the Lord. God bless you. Have a great day.